Take hip-hop. We've talked about this on the show before. You have African-American rappers saying N-word this and N-word that, but a Caucasian can't.
So say it.
Say what?
Say the word you want to say.
I'm not saying that I want to say it. I'm just saying that I can't.
Sure you can. Say it. Say it right now. I will say it with you.
Okay, this is hypocritical. You know we can't.
Sure you can. This is America. Both of you. Say it.
All right, I think we can move on.
Why move on when you want to say?
I can't say the N-word, but you can get on YouTube and watch any black man's rap video, and they're calling each other the N-word. What the hell is this discrimination? I'm white, I can't say the N-word and they can't?
So they say nigger. Yeah, there she go. Nigger. We don't say it. Hey, listen up, niggers, okay? Taney, you included. Okay. Okay, if you do not like me and Teddy saying nigger, either one of those, leave. Please, get on.
That's disrespectful, you know? Yo, what did I say? You said Allahu Akbar, fam. I never. Yes, you did. Don't lie. Who did? Don't lie. Don't lie to me. See, your sister's heart. Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, a lot of our ancestors have always tried to tell us that we don't have any friends. And like I always say, we are all we got. And I know at some point, we got to be tired of caping for all of these other groups. And when you think about it, you can't name one time that any of these other groups ever cape for us. But you always hear black people talking about black and brown. But the only time you hear the brown say black and brown is when it's something that affects them, like every other group does. But for some reason, we feel like it's our responsibility to put our capes on for every other group that is non-white and stand up for them in the face of white supremacy. But how can we help everybody else if we can't even help ourselves? But instead of worrying about trying to get everybody else to love us, all we have to do is love ourselves. And it doesn't matter how anybody else feels. But somehow our kindness always extends to other groups, to everybody but ourselves. When you look at these other groups, they have no problem staying on code. But when it comes to us, we still ask questions like, should race be a factor when it comes to voting? We have to understand the differences. When they have their businesses, they hire their own people. Asians hire their own. Hispanics hire their own. But when we hire our own, somehow we always find a problem with it. And instead of us identifying that as self-love, we identify that as hatred. But if black people are really as violent and hateful as they say we were, we wouldn't be in the situation in the first place. In fact, we would have other groups in the place that we are in. But the point is, we have to have confidence in ourselves. And when we understand our history and what we're capable of, then we won't have to keep talking about it. We will be rising to our potential. We have to understand we are the only group in America that has pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. Every other group in America has been given handouts. And even though other groups have had their own individual policies, they have gotten funding specifically for them, there has never been anything specifically for black people. I mean, the civil rights movement was designed to get black people civil rights, but it got every other group civil rights except for us, including white women who benefited the most from the civil rights movement. But that's because we're so busy trying to be friends with everybody else, and we let everybody else hop on our coattails after we put in the blood, sweat, and tears. But then when we turn around and ask them for help, they're nowhere to be found. And no matter how many times the same cycle keep playing out, we're still always the first one right there defending everybody else. And then we make excuses for it. And this self-hatred has been beaten into us so deep. We make excuses that if we marry an Asian person or a Hispanic person and say, well, at least they're not white, as if their group has any more love for you. I remember at a job I had, no matter how cool we thought we were with the Latino co-workers, if one of my black co-workers even joked about hooking up with one of their girls, all the smiling and laughing stopped. Because they have the same views as the dominant society. They want to fit into white supremacy. They're never going to challenge it. We're the only group that understands we're never going to fit in the white supremacy and we have to destroy it. These other groups think they have a chance to fit in. So if you're one of those people that talk about black and brown and you're dating a Latino person, you better make sure you do your research before you go meet their family. Because when it comes to that, they're going to show you how they feel about you real quick. In Seattle, Washington, a brother Dashawn Horne was brutally beaten by a Hispanic dude just because he hooked up with his sister. Now, let's go back and see what happened to this brother Dashawn Horne.
A man is in the hospital after being attacked by another man with a baseball bat. Investigators are now looking into this as a hate crime. King 5 anchor David Espinoza Hall live in the newsroom now with that story. David.
Yes, good evening, Lori. I mean, truly there is no other way to put this. This story is just heartbreaking. There's a black man fighting for his life after what police are calling a hate crime. And even our own governor has something to say about this case. Here's what we know at this time. Authorities say Julian Tuimaaga attacked Dashawn Horne with a baseball bat about a week ago. He's charged with assault and malicious harassment. Detectives say he got very upset when he learned his sister spent the night with Horne. We've been told that Horne is in the hospital in a coma. His family gave us these pictures of him. LaDonna Horne says her son was hit in the back of the head and beaten and just left for dead.
A lot of people know me. They know that I love my children. And I just wish that I was there to protect him. I was calling him at that time that he didn't answer the phone. Between 7 to 8 o'clock, I got in the shower and his voice, his name dropped in my spirit. And I began to pray while in the shower, not even knowing that Dashawn was in the hospital. The police showed up at my doorstep 8:45 on Saturday night with a piece of paper with my son's picture on it. He said, "We need to come in and have a seat. First, you need to know that your son didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do nothing wrong. He was a victim. This guy blindsided my son because he doesn't like black people."
Dashawn's mother says her son will be in the hospital for a very long time, rehabbing and trying to recover. Governor Jay Inslee said this on Twitter, quote, "It hurts me to think a crime like this can happen in Washington State in 2018.
Well, my mom taught us how to love, so that's one thing that I instill in all three of my children is love and kindness. And I am a Christian. We go to church, and you just don't know when your child's going to go out there and face the enemy like that. You would expect somebody to treat you how you want to be treated.
So from what we were told, and what came out in the police charging papers was, Dashawn met a young woman when he went out to a Seattle nightclub on January 20th. They hit it off. They liked each other. They went home together. Dashawn didn't realize that he was going into an episode of Get Out. Okay.
You're talking about the movie.
The movie Get Out is pretty much like a real life version where he went there. She still lived with her parents. She had a brother with the the baseball bat that ended up putting us in this situation. So as he was departing the following day, she had contacted a Lyft driver for him. Julian, approached the Lyft driver, asked him, "Who are you here to pick up?" The Lyft driver confirmed that his sister had in fact made the call. Julian approached the Lyft driver with bat in hand. So once he got the information from the Lyft driver, he confirmed that that it was for his sister. He went to the side of his house where his sister has a side entrance where, based on her age, I guess she had like a mother-in-law unit in the house, that's giving her independence, I would assume. And so as my nephew was departing from the side of the house, he was then approached by Julian, who hit him on the back of his head twice, who then proceeded to hit him on his back and on his legs. From what the police report read, Dashawn took a hit to his head and still found the strength to actually stumble some more before he actually found himself laid out like on the street. But based on the fact that he used the N-word, he made this a hate crime. Right. Something that you didn't think that we knew about occurring in the state of Washington. When they presented it to us, the prosecuting attorney and the detective, handling the case, they said malicious harassment. It was a term that was foreign to us. We never heard that term. We were like, well, how come you're not just saying what it actually is? Because it encompasses so much. When he decided that he was going to try to end my nephew's life, okay, he's getting charged assault 1. He tried to end my nephew's life on January 20th, 3 days after his brother's birthday. He had my nephew laying prone after he caught him, with a cowardly act. Didn't give him a chance to, face him, like a man. And he proceeded to say, "This is what we do to you, nigger." N-word, sorry. "This is how we deal with you, boy. I bet you ain't gonna have your N-words come around here again." How is he such a coward where he can say such things that he couldn't say when my nephew was, walking past him? It could serve as a teachable moment, basically to this young generation that we have. They almost are, certain that just because they befriend other people that aren't African American, that gives them the right to say the word N-word. Definitely, sorry about earlier. With "ga" versus okay? They don't realize that that word is not accepted when they bring that same kid to their house, because their fathers, their uncles, their aunties, their cousins, their big cousins, they're from a different generation where we use the word N-word, because we know it's a word that is not to be used, period.
So this brother Dashawn Horne went out to a club one night and he ended up meeting this Hispanic girl, and then his brother went home with her that same night. Now this girl still lived with her parents, so this brother went back to her family house. And then the next morning, as he was about to leave, she called the Lyft for him. Now this girl brother, Julian Tuimaaga, saw the Lyft driver and he approached him with a bat. And then when he found out it was for his sister, he went to go confront her. So then when this Hispanic boy saw this black man in the house, of course he got mad that his sister was with him. Now instead of doing or saying anything like a man to this brother's face, he waited until he walked past and then hit him in the back of the head with an aluminum bat. And then he just started beating his brother in his back, the back of his head, the back of his legs, and just kept hitting his brother with the bat. And as he was beating him, he was calling him nigga and all kind of slurs, just because he was mad his sister was with a black man. And then after he beat his brother and he was laying there, and he had him laying there on a pile of rocks, this dude pulled out his phone and started recording, talking about, "You see what happened to niggas when they come around here?" And as he laying there, he's just taunting him like, "Get up, homie," and saying stuff like, "That's what happened to you niggas out here, boy." Now luckily the Lyft driver saw the whole thing and ended up calling 911. And when the police got there, they said they thought they were responding to a homicide. But luckily, the brother was still breathing. Now, this brother was in a coma for 6 weeks. He suffered a brain injury and had to have a piece of his skull removed. And this Hispanic dude was arrested and charged. But he ended up getting a plea deal where they didn't even charge him with a hate crime.
The man who confessed to beating another man with a baseball bat in a racially charged attack just made a deal. He'll spend more time in jail, but won't face federal hate crime charges. KOMO's Matt Markovich joins us live to explain why. Matt?
Well, Molly, it was part of a plea bargain, so Dashawn Horne, the man who was beaten, and his family would not have to go to any trial because Dashawn doesn't remember the beating, why he got injured, and what happened to him. Julian Tuimaaga walked into court knowing what was about to happen. So did Dashawn Horne's mother, sitting in the audience. Back in January, Tuimaaga went after Dashawn with a baseball bat, repeatedly hitting him in the head while hurling hateful slurs.
To know that he called my son a I mean, come on. This is life.
It left Dashawn in a coma. Now, 8 months later...
Are you pleading guilty or not guilty today?
Guilty. Tuimaaga pleaded guilty to first-degree assault.
Guilty.
And guilty to malicious harassment involving the hate speech. The judge reading his confession.
If I used racially charged words and threats towards Dashawn Horne.
But in a deal between prosecutors and Dashawn's family and the U.S. attorney, Tuimaaga agreed to a deadly weapon enhancement. With it comes a mandatory 2 additional years in prison instead of going to federal court on federal hate crime charges.
I hope he get whatever he needs to be behind bars at this point, you know. Dashawn's been through a lot.
Dashawn is getting better.
Because we are what?
Family. His mother says he'll make a full recovery, but doesn't remember the beating and what led up to it.
He's not aware of what happened to him, you know. He is starting to ask questions.
But shortly after the beating, his mother was angry at Tuimaaga.
I really want to look him in the face and ask him, why did you do that?
She'll have that chance when he's sentenced next month. Now, with the extra 2 mandatory years in prison to avoid that federal court case, the prosecutor is asking for the maximum sentence in this plea deal of 160 months. That's just over 13 years. He'll be sentenced September 21st.
Now, this Hispanic white boy attempted to murder this brother because his sister liked black men. And after he attacked his brother before he was arrested, he went back in the house to kick in his sister's door just to start calling her a slut and a whore and a nigger lover. But this dude beat this brother with a bat while calling him a nigger, but it don't qualify as a hate crime. He even tried to say, anybody who knows me knows I'm not racist. The N-word is part of our culture. And that's the problem with us giving all of these people a pass to say nigger, because they can't say it, because this is how they really feel about you. But instead of attempted murder, he was charged with first-degree assault and malicious harassment.
That's what happened to these out here, huh?
Never before seen video of a vicious hate crime.
Why would you do this?
And the victim's family faced his attacker in court.
You have deprived him of being able to live free.
His plea for forgiveness on his judgment day. The Auburn man was attacked with a baseball bat in January. Good evening, I'm Dave Wagner.
I'm Monique Minglavin, and Kyra 7's Dee Dee Sun has been following this case since that attack. She was in the courtroom this afternoon during an emotional sentencing. Dee Dee.
It was difficult to be in the courtroom this afternoon. There was emotion on both sides, tears from both families as a judge decided how much prison time would be best for the 18-year-old who forever changed Dashawn Horne's life and committed this hate crime.
The day that you made the cowardly decision to beat my son in the back of the head and left him there to die. Why would you do this?
18-year-old Julian Tuimaaga faced his victim's family today.
You tried to murder my son.
Tuimaaga pled guilty to beating Dashawn Horne with an aluminum baseball bat over his head, back, and legs after Dashawn spent the night with his sister. Then he took this video as Dashawn laid unconscious, bleeding on a bed of rocks.
Get the up, homie. That's what happened to these out here, huh? That's what happened to you out here, boy.
That was a hard video for me to watch. That was the first time.
The attack nearly killed Dashawn. The defense said the act of violence was out of character, asking the judge for leniency and to consider Tuimaaga's young age.
Julian snapped. He was not in control of himself.
But today, Judge Julia Garrett sentenced Tuimaaga to the maximum allowed from the plea deal, 13 years.
I must balance that against the impact against Mr. Horne and the quote prison that he, through a fault of his own.
I followed Dashawn's case, talking with his family after the attack.
I try not to cry.
When Dashawn finally woke up,
and then his eyes start flickering, and they open slowly.
And earlier this week.
And now he's starting to remember the things he's done, like yesterday.
Finally today, the Horne family found closure.
I'd like to apologize to my victim, and especially his mom.
This matter has been quite a long time in coming.
A far cry from the images he captured after severely beating Dashawn Horne. Horne left the courtroom before the video was played. King 5 has chosen not to show it because of its graphic images and the audio filled with racial epithets.
The defendant brutally assaulted Dashawn Horne with a baseball bat, hitting him in the back of the head, knocking him unconscious, landing face first.
Sorry, that was a hard video for me to watch. That was the first time.
Dashawn's mother, LaDonna, spoke before the ruling. She said her son's life is changed forever by the cowardly decision.
Why would you do this? You didn't even know his name. It was so hard to watch my son go through so much suffering and pain, and it is still today, as he still is recovering. Dashawn requires 24-hour care around the clock.
Tuimaaga thanked his family for support, but disputes the motivation for this crime.
All that know me know I'm not racist, nor was this a hate crime. Me using the word that has caused us to be labeled a hate crime, I've been using since elementary. It's been used as a slang term, has been used by my friends of every race. Last but definitely not least, I'd like to apologize to my victim, and especially his mom.
But the judge said those words matter and sentenced him to the maximum requested time in prison, 13 years, with 3 years supervised after.
Dashawn's still here. After seeing that video, my heart dropped.
The Horne family says they do forgive him, but they will not forget.
I thank God that justice is served. I don't have to keep on saying justice for Dashawn because we got what we wanted.
Now, white Hispanics, even though they are white, for the most part, they still haven't got their white card. You know, they still might hear stuff like stop speaking Spanish or something like that. White Hispanics still aren't technically white, so he still had to pay somewhat. And he ended up getting 13 years in jail. But this was an attack on an innocent black man who did nothing. And he was calling them nigga while he was doing it. And he attacked them because his sister was with the black man. So, of course, this is not a hate crime. But luckily, this brother was able to survive, even though he suffered permanent damage. He had temporary memory loss. He lost his sense of smell, his sense of taste. He got a speech disorder and has to relearn everything. And he required 24-hour care, all because he went out to a club one night and hooked up with a Spanish girl and went home with her without doing his research. These people are not our friends. We have to be careful about putting ourselves in particular environments, especially when we're not able to protect ourselves like we need to be. We keep learning the hard way, but at some point we're going to understand that we are all we got. We don't have any friends. And as soon as we do understand that, then we'll be able to do what we have to do.
The population of Africa is set to almost double by 2050, raising fears that progress in fighting poverty and disease will be reversed. So what can be done to ensure that poverty doesn't increase? And how can a disproportionately large youth population help drive progress? With me to discuss all of this and more is Bill Gates. Bill, are we at a turning point where regression is a real risk?
Well, first, the progress over the last several decades has been pretty amazing, both reducing childhood death, getting kids in school, getting agricultural productivity up, and reducing extreme poverty. But it's really Africa that still has a doubling in population to 2050 and probably another doubling to 2100, where you really have to do a good job if you're trying to get these extreme poverty rates down. So if we don't do better in investing in human capital in Africa, yes, the number of people in extreme poverty is actually going to go up.
Should the solution, or should more solutions be focused on slowing that growth? So, for example, increasing reproductive rights for women or spreading the access to contraceptives, because it seems that, is it correct that no amount of investment can really keep pace with that population growth?
What we do between now and 2050 with education, with economic growth, with health and nutrition, that'll really set the course for moderating the population growth between 2050 and 2100. But it's really a virtuous cycle, letting women have reproductive health tools that they want, educating girls, raising agricultural productivity, getting these malnutrition interventions on a much greater scale than we have today. Those are the things you would want to do anyway. It turns out that by doing those well, you also set the population growth rate coming down quite a bit. And so it just makes it that much more imperative that we invest in the human capital now, and so that the challenge of what under any scenario will be fairly high population growth that you're able to benefit from all those young people making a big contribution to their country.
So is the fact that Africa has such a high proportion of youth population and within the context of this predicted growth, is that something that you think is a sort of optimistic statistic? I mean, is it a good thing that there's an opportunity here to sort of harness the power of those young people?
It's both an opportunity and a challenge, because the capacity to run the health systems well, to get the education system to have not only high attendance, but good learning outcomes as well. That's not going to be easy. If we don't make these investments, that youth bulge, will be a huge challenge, because they won't have the development, they won't have the economic opportunity that they deserve. So it's potentially an asset, but if we don't invest right, it could even be a liability.
Peut être provocateur. Est-ce qu'on ne devrait pas faire cette étude en Afrique, où il n'y a pas de masque, pas de traitement, pas de réanimation, un peu comme c'est fait d'ailleurs pour certaines études dans le sida, où chez les prostituées, on essaye des choses parce qu'on sait qu'elles sont hautement exposées et elles ne se protègent pas. Qu'est-ce que vous en pensez?
Alors vous avez raison, et d'ailleurs on est en train de réfléchir en parallèle à une étude en Afrique justement pour faire ce même type d'approche avec le BCG, un placebo. Je pense qu'il y a un appel d'offres qui est sorti ou va sortir.
According to a weekly intelligence briefing by the Department of Homeland Security's Federal Protective Services, white supremacists here in the United States have been actively talking about using the coronavirus as some kind of biological weapon to attack both law enforcement officers and minorities here in the United States. These messages were actually uncovered on an app called Telegram, which the Department of Homeland Security says is what a lot of these white supremacists use. They've been talking about the possibility of spitting on elevator buttons, going out in crowded places if you know you have the virus, and trying to cough on people, leaving saliva of infected people on door handles outside of police stations and FBI offices. These are all tactics that white supremacists have talked about doing in the last couple weeks. They have said, according to this briefing, that they have a, quote, obligation to infect as many people as possible if any one of them comes down with the coronavirus.
Hey, Officer Friendly with the cherry cheeks. Oh, I ain't worried about that shit. Y'all get that shit. Black people don't. So you can cough your white ass back where you live at. Fuck out of here. Fuck wrong with him. Tell them niggas don't get that shit. They the ones get that shit. Fuck out of here. Fuck. You need that extra layer of skin. Fuck out of here.
Tell them don't come through here with that shit.
Try to come through here coughing like that shit cute. I should call the CDC on his ass and let him know he just did some dirty ass shit like that.
A Baltimore police sergeant is under fire tonight after a video surfaced of him coughing without covering his mouth near people in southeast Baltimore. WMER 2 News' Ray Strickland is live outside police headquarters. And Ray, we understand that this is something that's now under investigation, correct?
Yes, and Baltimore City Police Commissioner Michael Harrison saying tonight what he saw in that video was disturbing and alarming, adding that the department does not condone anyone making light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this video has been making its rounds on social media, sparking outrage from all over. We spoke to a community activist who saw this video, and she's now calling for the sergeant's job. A Baltimore police sergeant under scrutiny tonight after he was seen in a video coughing near residents at the Perkins Homes in southeast Baltimore. The video has been viewed hundreds of thousands of times on social media. Critics say it appears to show the sergeant making light of the COVID-19 pandemic by purposely coughing near neighbors in the public housing community without covering his mouth. The video sparking outrage.
That is disgraceful.
Baltimore community activist Tawanda Jones is now calling for the officer's job.
It says a lot about his character. It says that I don't care about nobody's life.
Your lives do not matter. He needs to be fired on the spot. That is unacceptable.
The Baltimore City Police Department confirms the sergeant is now under investigation. Police Commissioner Michael Harrison said in a statement, quote, "What we saw in the video is alarming because this pandemic is affecting lives not only nationally, worldwide, but right here in our own police department," end quote. The video also surfacing on the same day we learned 12 officers have tested positive for the coronavirus.
I pray to God that he doesn't have it, because if he did, that's a deadly game that he's playing. He's playing Russian roulette with somebody's lives.
And Council President Brandon Scott also sent us a statement saying that the virus is not a joke, calling the sergeant's behavior unacceptable. And while this sergeant is under investigation, I'm told police are going to review his body camera footage to try to get a complete picture of what happened.
Public transportation. If you do not have a mask, you cannot ride public transportation, sir. Sir, you have to get off the bus. You have to get off the bus. Sir. Sir. Let's go. You gotta get off the bus, man. I'm gonna have the cops take you off, one or the other. You have to get off, you have to get off, you have to get off. Let's go. I have to get off? Yes, sir. Even though I have this? You don't have no mask. Let's go. Let's go. You gotta get off. Let's go. Let's go. You gotta get off. Let's go. For the taser. Let the orange go. What the fuck am I holding on to? Yo, you're gonna feel this, man. Look what the fuck y'all calling me, dumbass. Get the fuck off. Get out. Get the fuck off my fucking leg. Right. Take me if you fucking want. Where the fuck? Go in this door, man. Fucking pussy ass. I want all y'all fucking badge numbers too. Yeah. That's fucked up, man.
That's a little boy.
That's a little
That's a little boy.
You're trying to sell candy in here. Oh, that's corny as hell,
Cause
bro.
he's trying to sell candy. That's a little boy.
That's a little boy, but they don't even be. But y'all niggas don't do none of that shit.
That shit made me want to get off this damn train. That's a little boy.
Well, like y'all don't do that to none of the grown ass niggas that sell candy though, bro.
Boy.
Man, let them back on the train. Let them sell candy. Fuck y'all niggas, man.
I ain't moving out the door, man, till little man get back with his friends. Fuck that.
But why you take his jacket off, yo? Look
why
at
you doing that to him? Bro, we about to get this train. That shit make me mad, for real.
Yo, let that little boy go.
That's a little boy.
Look at that shit, yo. Look at that shit. He crying.
And that's her son, bro. You're not supposed to be on him like that.
Yo, that's fucked up, yo. That's fucked up, yo.
That's a little boy.
Look how they treating this little boy, yo. He's supposed to be protecting son, bro. Yo, it's a whole kid, my nigga.
That is my son.
Let him go.
That is my son. That is my son.
He only got chips and candy, my nigga.
You just selling chips and candy on the train. That's my son. Let my son go. Let my son go. Let my son go. That is my son. That is my son. That is my son. Let my son go.
Look at this shit, bro.
Let my son go. Let my child go. I'm speaking to you. You're not.
That's a little boy. That's a little boy, though.
You got rights. They're not supposed to do that to a little boy.
Look at him. He's crying, though, my nigga. He's crying. Yo, that's corny, bro.
That's a little boy. Because he was selling chips.
Selling chips.
He was selling chips.
Selling chips. Selling chips.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're leaving. Please, let's not cuss at each other. No, I'm not calling you anything, sir. Just don't talk to us with
this asshole right here.
Hey, don't touch. Hey, do not touch. Hey, oh my God! What the fuck is your problem? You do not touch me. Do not fucking touch me. You give me my hey, get away from her. Oh my God, get off of her! Seriously, get off of her! Go!
This video that you're about to see may be disturbing to some. It shows a man shoving teenage girls, and then you see a woman holding down one of those girls' legs while she's over here, and the man forcing his hands around her throat.
Oh my God, get off of her! Seriously, get off of her! Go!
This was the moment things climaxed Friday at the Norton Commons Amphitheater. WLKY News confirmed that the man in the video is a local physician. Witnesses say he and the woman he was with started cursing at them for improperly social distancing. According to this police report, LMPD's 8th Division responded to the incident in the East Louisville neighborhood. It's being investigated as a first-degree strangulation case. The victim reportedly suffered minor injuries. We called Baptist health officials. They told us the doctor in the video is an anesthesiologist for a company that works with Baptist. They say that he's currently on administrative leave pending an investigation. LMPD officials sent us this statement reading, "Obviously, we do not advise individuals concerned about social distancing to take matters into their own hands and confront people about it, especially in any physical way."
That siren, known by many from the movie The Purge, was not received well by some living in Crowley. Chris Walty spoke to the chief on his decision to sound the siren as a part of the city's curfew.
Crowley Police Chief Jimmy Broussard says he's never seen The Purge, but he knows the sound to be an old military siren. Since the alert Thursday night, the department has received mixed messages about their curfew warning to residents. Ty Abshire was caught off guard when he heard the Purge siren echoing through the streets of Crowley around 9 o'clock Thursday night.
It was just crazy. I knew they had the curfew, but nobody was expecting to hear that kind of siren.
Police Chief Jimmy Broussard says his intent was never to scare anyone.
As we examined it, we didn't want to go through with our regular sirens because we didn't want to create more havoc. And one of the officers who is military approached me and said, well, you know, Chief, there is an old military siren that was used. It was used in the movie Purge, but it's been used for many, many years. And after listening to it, I said, well, it's a more muffled tone. It, wouldn't create to me as much havoc.
The department has since received more than 500 comments on Facebook questioning why they use the siren and why the curfew is being strictly enforced.
It was to remind people that this is a very serious matter. It's a very serious disease. It's a very serious pandemic going on. I think part of the issue is people are not seeing, even if they look at the statistics, it's not real to them.
Abshire says he understands the chief's intentions, but says people on Facebook are now going too far.
I post on Facebook saying, oh, I know who I'm going to go kill tonight. Oh, it's your time. Oh, have it coming. Things like that. So I've just definitely thought a better siren could have been issued.
Our purpose was to let people know, and if they know now, even through this, how dangerous this pandemic is, how dangerous this COVID-19 is, then okay, it was accomplished.
Abshire hopes through all of this, people do see the good work first responders are doing to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Thank y'all, and continue to do what y'all do and be heroes out on these streets.
The chief says moving forward, he doesn't plan to use any sirens for a situation like this.
Ask them who in this building has been of help to her. She is trying to be simplistic. It may sound like she's talking down to people and being childlike, but she's actually the one person in the building that you shouldn't be going at, because she's the one person who cares.
But you don't even listen to what she has to say.
She cares.
We've listened to what she said. No, you didn't.
You haven't listened to us.
So please.
So we're carrying on now. If you want to do something, that's fine. We're carrying on. You can record it and do what you want to.
We're carrying on.
Okay? Go back. Go back.
No, I'm staying right here. Don't tell me to go back.
This is not for you. This is for the residents.
You don't tell me to go back.
The residents of the... I want you to go back.
I'll stand right here so I can get a clear view.
Can we move this? No, let's...
Sit down.
All right, let her finish.
Right. Girls and gentlemen and ladies, we are going to have a little bit of fun here, okay? When I'm finished and you understand the 20 seconds, it will make a difference. I'm trying to make this into not a lecture. I don't want a lecture. I want to make this into a fun thing, okay? So let's start.
Fully grown adults.
Okay. So you
being
put
told how to
the
sing.
soap on your hands and you clean the tap.
Each and every one of them loves you.
You then switch off the tap. You then pour the water onto yourself.
And when they have problems, they come individually to our house and come and sit down and talk their problems to Shelley. No one else in the building.
And sing happy birthday.
So
you want to see how long it takes? 20
Maybe
seconds.
you should also listen to what other people have to say.
All right. 1 and 2 and come on, sing Shoshaloza. 1 and 2 and happy birthday and 3 and 4 and what should I
This is ridiculous.
5 and 6 and
This is absolutely
7
insane.
and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15.
Quick question for you. You said that African Americans and Latinos should avoid alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. You also said do it for your abuela, do it for Big Mama and Pop Pop. There are some people there are some people online that are already offended by that language and the idea that you're saying behaviors might be leading to these high death rates. Could you talk about whether or not could you have a response for people who might be offended by the language that you used?
Well, I use that language because that's the language. I've been meeting with the NAACP, with the National Medical Association, with others. I actually talked with Derek Johnson multiple times this week, the head of the NAACP, and we need targeted outreach to the African American community, and I use the language that is used in my family. I have a Puerto Rican brother-in-law. I call my granddaddy granddaddy. I have relatives who call their grandparents Big Mama. So that was not meant to be offensive. That's the language that we use and that I use, and we need to continue to target our outreach to those communities.
12 dick eating and shit. Look at them acting all precious Jews. Whole hood out, we ain't going like that. Niggas is not going like that. Niggas is not going like that.
Everybody.
Yo, bitch ass out here. Bitch ass.
This is not apartheid, bitch!